The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Unless, of course, you're outright trying to manipulate and gaslight your audience, which in that case you can eat shit. At this point, I've already made 2 videos about the Loud House's no such luck. So one day I thought to myself, why not make it a trilogy? Yeah, stop bringing up an episode that's almost a decade old. You're just a misogynistic psycho who thinks your orange messiah can do no wrong.
You can shut up now!
The first installment was about ripping the episode itself to shreds. The second was about calling out the junior crybabies and debunking the worst defenses of her character and the episode in general. So, what will I be diving into in this installment? Why, fanfictions, of course. You know, the ones that the wicked bloke just some ordinary dude has a problem with? Gee, I wonder why.
Here's the thing, more harm than good was caused by these NSL fics. That is the truth. That is a fact.
That is the truth. That is a fact. That is the truth. That is a fact.
I've disliked a few episodes of the show. I'm not saying the professionals can't make mistakes, because they certainly can. You know, they're human as well. But if people think that, you know, fanfic writers are better, or at least the ones I've seen, I'm sorry, but no, they're really not.
Were you lying then? Are you lying now? Or are you not in fact a chronic and habitual liar?
Anyone who is even remotely familiar with NSL knows about its horribly botched ending, where the Louds get away with their abusive actions against Lincoln. This led to many people becoming justifiably furious with them, igniting a chain reaction that resulted in a flood of fanfiction and fan art based on the episode. And there is a lot of hate art directed toward LJ and Lola, who frankly, both deserve it. Since his folks were Karma Houdinis in that episode, I have taken the majority of their misfortunes as a substitute for karma, even if it's delivered through Lincoln himself. If that makes me abnormal or vengeful, then oh well. Regardless, its very existence split the fanbase into 2 camps. Those who strongly believe they should never be forgiven after that fiasco, and those who believe they can. This might come off as a surprise to you, but I actually believe there is validity between these 2 arguments. I'm not completely opposed to the idea of them receiving forgiveness in fanfictions, if it's executed well. Because you know what they say, there's no such thing as a bad idea, only bad execution. Forgiveness is not something that should be handed out like candy. It is something that must be earned if you hurt someone very badly, whether it be a family member, a friend, or anyone else. You have to make things right with them, not the other way around. 2 fanfictions that serve as sequels to NSL tackled this theme. However, only one of them did it right, while the other fell short. But which ones will I be drawing comparisons to? Why, they would be from the respective writers, ThatEngineer and GGC Pictures. The latter wrote an NSL fanfic you've probably never heard of. And oh, howdy do I wish I were you. The fanfic in question is titled, Repay Evil with Good. Let's just get this over with because I really want to talk about the next one. We've barely scratched the surface of this story, and we've already come across some major red flags. When a fanfiction manages to have its first screw up at the opening summary alone, chances are you shouldn't have made this story to begin with. Also grammar, my guy. First of all, he seems to think only fans consider NSL to be TLH's worst episode, when there are literally non-fans who share the same sentiment as them. And then he pulls the classic deflection card. Why are you getting angry over this episode when there are far worse episodes from other shows? Because none of them were the subject of discussion when it came to the backlash NSL received. You just wanted to shift people's attention away from it because the negative reception made you feel uncomfortable. Secondly, he spits in the face of people who want to see Lincoln receive justice for his family's crimes against him by resorting to insults and using strawman arguments. Duh, Lincoln wasn't innocent in NSL. Like I don't already know that? What point are you trying to make here? Are you actually inferring that he holds responsibility for the abuse that was inflicted upon him? Karma's a bitch, am I right? That makes about as much sense as saying someone's spouse wouldn't have hit them if they hadn't upset them. Both arguments shift blame onto the victims and downplay the severity of the aggressor's actions. And these wonder why people focus on his pain more than the others. Maybe it's because he just so happens to be the most sympathetic out of all of them? Nah, it's because they're Lincoln cultists. Man, who cares that he's a victim of child abuse and ostracization? He's just as bad as his abusers. And last, but certainly not least, he confuses the idea of justice with revenge and barbarism. And that's just the author's note. Reading the story is way fucking worse. You thought I was making a big deal out of the author's note for this pile of elephant shit? Well, think again, because we're at the beginning of the story and there's already a fuckload of problems. And to think, they wouldn't have been so bad had the story not pulled the bullshit both sides are at fault card. The story wants to hold his family responsible for their abuse, but it also wants to hold Lincoln responsible for his lie. That's having it both ways. There is a monumental difference between saying Lincoln may have lied, but his folks went too far, and his folks may have gone too far, but Lincoln lied. If you can't differentiate between the two, then I have no hope for the rest of humanity. His so-called dirty and treacherous methods were simply pretending to be bad luck so he could have alone time for himself. That is literally comparing a victim to their abusers. The best way I can explain why his self-blame is beyond forced is this. He did not ostracize or banish any of his loved ones from the house. He has no reason to be the angriest with himself. It was more logical for Lin Lau Jr. to be portrayed in a negative light in Rabbit's Luck because she actually did something to warrant such treatment. That story centered around her reflecting on her mistakes and seeking forgiveness from her brother. The problem was that the narrative made her too unlikable to truly sympathize with. And on top of that, you know, Repay Evil with Good's attempt to vilify Lincoln fails because he does nothing that even comes close to justifying it. The fact that he lied is insignificant to what his family did. Simply put, the punishment does not fit the crime. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say Repay Evil with Good treats Lincoln's actions as morally equivalent to his family's? Because it actually frames his deeds as worse than theirs. Out of f***ing nowhere, his family's actions are portrayed as somehow noble. GGC Pictures is literally whitewashing their actions while demonizing Lincoln. And just when you think this shit couldn't smell any worse, it has the absolute gall to frame his desire for justice as selfish. Like, are you shitting me? Imagine genuinely believing that his second mistake would be worse than his first. Reporting abuse to the authorities versus lying to get alone time. Does that make any sense to you at all? It forces Lincoln to disregard his well-being and tolerate their cruelty for the sake of preserving the family. Wow. F***ing amazing. This is by far one of the worst attempts at guilt-tripping and fear-mongering ever conceived. And a single clip by Lisa Sunny is enough to disarm it.
Abuse thrives on silence. Your silence is one of the best weapons that an abuser has. They're banking on it. Your silence is actually so important to abusers that they have 101 ways to keep you silent. Telling people to keep their abuse quiet serves the abuser. It enables abuse. It perpetuates abuse. You're really okay with that? It's often easier to make the victim speaking out against abuse the problem instead of the abuser. This way they don't have to confront the real issue.
Forget Lincoln receiving justice for what he went through. Jelmar f***ing forbid he speaks out and gets the help he needs.
Who cares if he spread terror in his family? Who cares if he purposely broke your ice golf club? Who cares if he lays down in his underwear on Walesty table? Now he cares too much.
You may as well reframe that passage to this. Who cares that his room was boarded up? Who cares that he slept outside on a pile of leaves wearing nothing but pajamas for a full night? Who cares that he was locked out of the house? Who cares that he was forced to humiliate himself by wearing a squirrel suit? Getting the authorities involved is wrong and makes him just as bad as the people who abused him. And if you want to make the argument that Lincoln holds some responsibility for NSL playing out the way it did, there are a few reasons why that argument doesn't hold up under even the slightest amount of scrutiny. 1. If you are easily duped by someone claiming that they're bad luck when it is blatantly obvious that they're faking it, that's on you. 2. Saying that an abuse victim holds responsibility for what they went through reframes abuse as a consequence of their actions, regardless of how wildly disproportionate the aggressor's actions were. This is the equivalent of saying that someone's house wouldn't have been burned down if they didn't use a swear word. It shifts the framing from the victim was abused by someone else to both parties were responsible, which leads to the power imbalance being ignored. When it's a 12 against 1 situation like in NSL, the parents and siblings have more power than one kid combined. 3, and perhaps the most important reason of all, it would be one thing if the only downside to pretending to be bad luck were people keeping their distance. But when it gets to the point where the victim is actively being abused, the moral responsibility ultimately lies with the aggressors. It's no longer about who did wrong, it's about who caused the real harm. Honestly, Stupid Sexy Skeletons explains why the two to tango argument falls apart better than I can. Heck, this quote that was callously dismissed by the misogyny accusation slinging scoundrel reinforces my last 2 points. So you can't disapprove of how Lincoln went about getting alone time without claiming that he played a role in the abuse that followed. The former is acknowledging his faults. The latter is victim blaming. Here's a hypothetical question. What if that was any of your loved ones in this situation? Would you hold them responsible? Now before you misinterpret what I'm saying, I'm not suggesting that they did anything wrong because that is none of my business. Regardless if one did wrong or not, it should never be used as a reason or justification for abuse under any circumstances. Lincoln decides there is only one way to fix all of this mess. He finds an ice cream man and tells him to follow him as he runs like the wind to reunite with his folks. You're making it very difficult for me to want to see them reconcile, bucko. If you thought you could pull on people's heartstrings with this passage, that opportunity was off the table the moment you decided to equate him with his abusers. You can't portray him as someone you're supposed to sympathize with when you spent the entire story demonizing him up until that point. Pick a lane and stick to it. Lincoln buys ice cream for his folks because f*** it all, that's why. They refuse to eat their frozen trees out of fear that something bad will happen to them. All because he wasn't wearing his squirrel suit. Lana silences them and issues a challenge, to which they reluctantly accept. The rest of the day is a chore to read through. Nothing bad happens to the Louds. Lucy confesses that she never believed her brother was bad luck. Did she seriously just make an unnecessary reference to Nazi Germany? Hey, buddy boy, you're writing a fanfiction to one of the most hated cartoon episodes of all time, not a history book. So f***ing act like it. The next morning, the Louds apologize to Lincoln for their actions and behavior. They all reconcile. The end. What the hell did I just witness? I thought Rabbit's luck was emotionally manipulative, but this doesn't even compare. I am so sorry, Rabbit's luck. Repay evil with good sends harmful messages that, if applied to the real world, would blow up in GGC's face in more ways than one. It equates lying with abuse, discourages abuse victims from seeking help and frames it as revenge, and places a burden on them to fix everything. Not even Lana sticking up for Lincoln could save it. This fanfic is so horrendous that it makes Easily Broken look like a masterpiece. And that atrocity had Lincoln's folks mistreat, humiliate, and emotionally abuse him, which drove him to the point of nearly logging off the server permanently, only to get back with them as if their sins were trivial wrongdoings. The only thing that saves that story from being irredeemable is the catharsis of Lincoln running away and calling out his family for their bullshit. As for repay evil with good, a sentiment I shared in my Rabbit's Luck review sums it up perfectly. When a fanfiction with darker themes manages to tell a much better story about forgiveness than you are seriously f***ed. A literal middle finger to survivors of abuse. There is nothing salvageable about this indefensible dumpster fire. 0 out of 10. Honestly, I give up with this story. I mean, what could I say that hasn't already been said? You want to talk about bad no such luck fanfics just some ordinary dude? Here you go. Why don't you talk about that? Talking about the creator of the fanfic is a lot more interesting than the fanfic itself, and I promise we're gonna get to him later. For now, it's about time that I bring up another fanfic that tells a similar story, but done correctly. I remember reading What Is a Person Worth several years ago. I liked it, but I never thought deeply about it. So, upon listening to the entirety of the fanfic narrated by Shadow the Lion Queen, I came to realize that it's even better than I remembered. She does a pretty good job narrating the story, and I commend her for taking the time to read every single chapter so that others can listen to the story being told to them. What is a Person Worth is what the first TLH movie should have been, or heck, even the franchise's most recent film. So the next time someone says, "Nobody wants to see a movie like that," tell them I said, "Yo." I'll be using artwork to show you some of the scenes that take place in What is a Person Worth, though most of them are from Emerald DT8. Now, without further ado, let's get right into this fanfic, shall we? At the beginning of the story, the family can come across as really unlikable, and I wouldn't blame you if you were frustrated with the first few chapters, but the more you read into it, the more you can see how their introduction pays off in the best way imaginable. When Lincoln cried and asked himself if his family even loved him anymore, I actually felt that. Look me in the eye and tell me that he sucked in NSL. Who in their right mind would argue that he brought the abuse upon himself and sneer at anyone who sympathizes with him, let alone say all of those things without having even the slightest moment of self-reflection? At some point in the story, Lincoln is confronted by the rivals of LJ's baseball team and chased after dogs while wearing a squirrel suit. Before that, Lola, the little bitch, forced him to wear said suit at school so she could mooch off his good luck. Finding himself at a junkyard, he has a reasonable crash out. He takes off the suit and tosses it into a fire, only to discover that his family threw away his furniture. He would have a few words to say to everyone when he got back. Back in the Loud House, Lincoln reaches his boiling point with his family, and the anger he's been suppressing for a long time slips through the cracks. This leads to a fight between two bitter siblings. It goes about as well as you'd expect. He runs away from home, bruised, bloodied, heartbroken, and betrayed. He had every right to crash out, and only a scumbucket would try to gaslight you into thinking that makes him a villain, or that you're a misogynist for supporting this. That doesn't make him petty or even entitled. It makes him human. I support this. I guess that makes me a misogynist, right? Well, I'll have you know that I'm a fan of characters such as Slushy, Hilda, Ellie Rose, Mizu, Petra, Nell, Shikabane, Retsuko, Katara, Korra, Janora, Kitty Catswell, XJ9, Uzi Dorman, Serial Destination V, Sanessa, Gwen Stacy, Anne Boonchoi, Marcy Wu, Luz Noceda, Ida Clawthorne, Wendy Corduroy, Pomni, Liu Xiaotong, Osaragi, Akira Akao, Thorn Harvestar, Lenny Loud, Stella Zhao, who are TLH characters by the way, and Jenna Lewis from the Royal Woods Adventures. Does that answer your question? Lincoln calling out his family for their bullshit will never not be satisfying to read in not just NSL fanfics, but Loud House fanfics in general. But I guess that makes him a vengeful punk according to this dolt, who I'm going to assume cares very little for him at this point. Here's what he's basically saying. I'm okay with Lincoln being a doormat for his family to walk all over. He doesn't need you to speak for him.
You are so full of crap.
There is plenty to like about What is a Person Worth. Not only does the story handle Lincoln running away exceptionally well, but he doesn't return to his folks like nothing ever happened. Instead of forcing him to make amends with them, it's the other way around as it should be. It doesn't sugarcoat their actions, doesn't equate his lie with abuse, and their characterization is believable. Unlike other fanfic writers who only write controversial characters in the positive light solely to satisfy their ego, oops, I believe ThatEngineer had nothing but the best intentions from writing What is a Person Worth. I believe he wrote the characters the way they are in this story because he actually gave a shit. Eventually, the Santiagos take him in after Ronnie Ann finds him sitting next to a lamppost. To all the Ronnie Can fans out there, you're going to love their scenes together. Unlike Repay Evil with Good, What is a Person Worth allows Lincoln to defend himself if necessary. Lincoln does consider getting the authorities involved in What is a Person Worth, and while he doesn't go through with it, the narrative never portrays him in the wrong for considering it to begin with his own mother acknowledging that. He is aware of the legal consequences that his family would face should he get the authorities involved. So instead, he sets boundaries with them, promising to change his mind if they dare to make him return home by force. Despite his resentment towards his folks, he decides to give them a chance to regain his trust, and it's up to them to decide how they're gonna accomplish that task. I won't dive into everything that happens in What is a Person Worth, but I will share some of my favorite moments in that story. While his folks are supposed to make things right with him, Lincoln will go out of his way to defend them if they are in danger. Just like when Lana tried to defend him from Chandler and his goons picking on him. It doesn't go well for her. But as Ben from Barnyard once said, A strong man stands up for himself. A stronger man stands up for others. Seeing his little sister cry is enough for him to activate his brother bear instincts. It's kinda like with me. It pisses me off to see people physically attack another person who can't defend themselves, that I want to do whatever I can to protect them, despite the odds being against me. Chandler and his goons' asses are handed to them by Lincoln as he comforts Lana. After she explains the nightmare she had about not being able to save her brother, stemming from the guilt of everything that's happened, he apologizes and decides to forgive her. Putting herself on the line for his sake, despite being physically outmatched and outnumbered, made her more than worthy of forgiveness in his eyes. This proves that even after everything they did to him, nobody messes with his own. I don't know about you, but Lincoln in this scene kinda reminds me of Mufasa from The Lion King. Several chapters later, Lenny, Luna, and Luann plan to take Lincoln to a place similar to Gus's Games and Grub. Luna sends him the invite, to which he accepts. The next day, Luann sits next to Lincoln on a bench, and after an awkward greeting, she apologizes for pranking him and using Ronnie and his bait to get him to take every bit of hell the loud prankster threw at him, all to ensure her safety on April Fools. Unconvinced, Lincoln questions her remorse by bringing up the fiasco that came after that, which is a callback to TLH's Season 2 episode, Fool's Paradise. Luann admits that she wanted to outdo herself from last year and tried to downplay the harm she caused because everyone got revenge on her in the end. He counters this by pointing out that some of their siblings had to deal with the effects of her pranks for weeks. And that's not even mentioning the danger the large pile of laundry posed for Lily. But what do I know? It's not like any of Luann's pranks could kill anybody. At least according to ass kissers like the Conquering Maggot. She tries to defend herself by claiming that she knew Rita would save Lily, and that the prank was meant for her. Still pretty damn risky, don't you think? And then Lincoln asks her the hard-hitting question about what she had planned for his own prank, before pointing out that he could have gotten seriously injured or even killed. This is too much for Luann to take in, and she excuses herself to use the bathroom. Although Lincoln called her out for her April Fool's antics and his anger was justified, he still feels a shred of guilt for making her cry, as he only wanted her to reflect on her actions. A few minutes later, Lincoln and Luann are picked up by Lenny and Luna as they head to a place called Jillian's. Luann excuses herself again, and Luna uses the opportunity to ask Lincoln what's wrong with her. He tells her what happened earlier, before the mixed swagger aficionado shows him the video that she and Luann made on her phone. It's a slideshow of pictures of him and his sisters in their younger years, as Luna's voice and guitar playing can be heard in the background. The video ends with a message from Luz. Lincoln gets up and hugs Luna, thanking her as Lenny snaps a picture of this priceless moment. That's when she reveals that she made him a new bed that is Ace Savvy themed. Hey, that's a nice callback to the Season 1 episode Driving Miss Hazy. And that's church, yo! As expected, he hugs and expresses gratitude toward her. Luna points out that Luann hasn't returned yet, and Lincoln declares that he would bring her back in spite of the risk. He enters the bathroom and tries to talk to her, but Luann refuses to come out, guilt-ridden for all the sins she committed on the last 2 April Fools. Lincoln stops her from calling herself a monster, apologizes for making her cry, and asks that she tones down her pranks, or at least let everyone join in on the mayhem. Just when he was about to leave, Luann stepped out of the stall, leading to their reconciliation with a hug. She apologizes for not just the prank she pulled on him and their family, but also for viewing her brother as a good luck charm. He accepts it, but makes her promise to not do another prank apocalypse, unless everyone can play pranks on each other, and to delete all of his embarrassing moments caught on 4K, to which she agrees. At one point, Lincoln watches Lola's performance at a school theater. Afterwards, he confronts his mother Rita in the hallway, where he breaks down in front of her. The initial anger he feels slowly turns into self-loathing. Lincoln believes he is at fault for the bad luck fiasco getting out of hand, which is something many victims of abuse do in real life. They often blame themselves as a form of coping mechanism, and sometimes they make excuses for their abusers. Rita is reassuring him that he shouldn't blame himself for his family's actions. It's kinda ironic that one of the people who deeply harmed him turns out to be more human in that moment than these sick freaks. This is my message to a certain group of people watching or listening to this. You know who you are. If by the end of this video, you read the articles I provided in the description, and you still believe that Lincoln was responsible for his abuse, I have nothing else to say to you except, go f yourself. Near the end of the story, Lucy drags LJ along with her during study periods so she can speak with Lincoln. It had been close to a week since they last spoke with each other, especially after their fight. And the jock is afraid. The goth reminds her that this may be her only chance to make amends with him and convinces her to go along with it. LJ apologizes to Lincoln for everything and falls on her knees while crying her eyes out. See, this is what the Loud House should be doing, but isn't because we can't go for this kind of deep writing. That would scare our younger demographic. I think I'm willing to say at this point that even the people who wrote Rabbit Slut got more balls than them. Sorry if I was ever too harsh on you guys. And it all comes full circle where Chandler hires thugs to get revenge on Lincoln because I guess he never learned to live well enough alone. And it's at this moment where Linsanity ultimately redeems herself by standing up to them to protect her baby bro. Guess she took Ben's words to heart, huh? But just when you think that all is well, Hank and Hawk, who you might recognize from The Loudest Yard and Tricked, show up and ambush Lincoln, making it Ronnie Ann's turn to protect him. It didn't go well. The jock enters the scene and faces off against those meatheads after taking care of the hired thugs, only to eventually lose consciousness. Just when it seemed like it was the end for our protagonist, Lori and Carol intervene and the bullies get their asses handed to them. Lenlow Jr. ends up in the hospital. But it's not all bad news. She recovers and becomes the final sibling to earn Lincoln's forgiveness. And the man with the plan finally returns home, his relationship with his family rekindled, stronger than ever before. And if you're wondering what happened to Chandler, let's just say he gets his just desserts. His reputation flushed down the toilet, and being pranked by the Louds and their friends, for all the atrocities he committed against Lincoln and his loved ones.
That was extremely satisfying.
Now that is what a great work of art looks like. While far from being the most original NSL fanfic, What Is a Person Worth is the gold standard of how to do a forgiveness story based on the Loud House done right. I know these kinds of fanfictions aren't for everyone, but if you want a respectful continuation to NSL, this is among the best of what these kinds of fanfictions have to offer. Despite what you may think, What Is a Person Worth doesn't make Lincoln a martyr or punish his loved ones. It makes them learn from their mistakes and become better people. Much like the Firefly Funhouse match at WrestleMania 36, this fanfic is a perfect 10 out of 10. No matter how many years go by, it's still worthy of praise and worth recommending. Now you tell me, which is a more compelling continuation of NSL? That? Or this schlock? It's finally time we talked about the man of the hour himself, GGC Pictures. Sure, I featured him before in my Michael 509 rant, but I didn't think much of him back then. But when I decided to look into the guy to make this episode, I discovered that he is way more problematic than I was expecting. He has the tendency to make manipulative posts on DeviantArt, which may as well be propaganda pieces. Forgive me for going off on a tangent, but I just can't let this slide. Why do you have to ruin a perfectly good drawing with nonsense like this? Are you and the dunce relatives or something? His name should not be GGC Pictures. It should be GGC Propaganda. Jokes aside, he is so laughably bad at being a propagandist that I'm gonna debunk a few of his posts, just for good measure. Firstly, yes, Lincoln had a crush on a teacher, as I'm sure most of us have, but you don't see him harassing her like the sisters did with his tutor. Even their dad got into the action, like what the hell. Second, even if Lincoln intended to be the only child of his household, I pretty much guarantee you that neither of his sisters would have been kicked out the way he was in NSL. They most likely would have been put up for adoption. Well, excuse us, princess, for actually giving a shit about his well-being, abuser apologist. But if you thought his propaganda pieces were atrocious, just wait until you see that comic he posted in his account, drawn by Thomas Inkling and written by our dearest friend, Mr. Propaganda. I don't care how badly you suffered in NSL just for wanting alone time, Lincoln. You were selfish to think you're the only important member of your family. I know his family kicked him out of the house, Amy. Wouldn't you do the same? When the person who originally drew the comic made a sequel that puts your original story to absolute shame, you know you've done f***ed up. And there's no saving your ass. I just find it ironic that he decided to write a comic featuring these two characters considering he made... Oh. Hypocritical much? Welp, time to erase that from my memory forever. Jelmar Genius Cat Propaganda. I know sooner or later you'll come across this video. And if you made it this far, listen up, boy, and you listen well. I sincerely hope you will come to your senses, realize your way of thinking is fundamentally flawed, and apologize for writing Repay Evil with Good to begin with. Not to mention the propaganda pieces, that unnecessary comment of yours, and don't even get me started on that creepy drawing you made. Despite everything you've done, I still have hope for you. This meanwhile, well...
If anyone is going to insist that Lincoln is off the hook for his part in lying and doubling down several times over purely because he apologized over a megaphone, then likewise the moment Lynn apologized at the end she was off the hook too. If folks want to get mad at my saying Lynn is off the hook because of her apology, they need to get mad at themselves for suggesting Lincoln is off the hook because his apology first. If a simple I'm sorry is good enough for one, it's good enough for both in that instance.
I'm gonna slap some sense into you!
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the mentally disturbed individual that you represented and enabled by making these repugnant, deplorable, egregious, sickening, callous, despicable, gosh awful comments, and by genuinely believing that lying to get alone time is comparable to child abuse. Never mind the fact that this is a bigger contradiction than anything this imbecile has accused me of, but chapter 21 of Loud Visions 2 by Rack44 alone blows it out of the water.
It's actually sending not only a misguided message, but a harmful one, that you can get away with things like betrayal, bullying, abuse, and assault. It's saying that a simple, heartfelt apology can make up for all that, which it doesn't. You don't betray your own flesh and blood, treat him like a pariah, beat him, and are sorry, and get off the hook just like that.
Any reasonable person with basic morals should understand how utterly dangerous and irresponsible this f***ed way of thinking is, because the lengths people will go to trivialize the gravity of child abuse by flattening moral nuance and ignoring the power imbalance are nothing short of disturbing. They are enablers of abuse and you can't convince me otherwise. Congratulations, dickhead stain. Who's flopping like a fish now? You dug your own grave. Now sleep in it.
You say I'm a clown? Well, guess what, pal? You're the joke. Your title reign's a joke. Your bloodline's a joke. Your family is a joke. Your cousin's a joke. Your daddy, your uncle, they're a joke.
Oh, sir. Just one more thing.
Go f*** yourself.
Remember when I said that Rabbit's luck wasn't as bad as NSL despite doing very little to fix the damage it caused? Now compare that with Repay Evil with Good, which does nothing to improve on it, and if anything doubles down on everything that made NSL reviled by so many people. It truly is a disaster, and anyone who thinks this is a story of quality is woefully ignorant of how disgusting, harmful, and offensive it is to anyone who went through abuse and lost their lives because of it. The main reason What Is a Person Worth works and Repay Evil with Good doesn't is that it teaches that you can forgive those who did you wrong without sacrificing your dignity. Even if What Is a Person Worth didn't exist, there are other fan-made sequels to NSL that are better written and actually worth your time than this dumpster fire. Out of Luck, We Were the Louds, Long Lost Loud, Aladdin Eden's Gate, Gal Pals, the true sequel by Sandros of 123 of all people. Heck, even Rabbit's Luck is a better continuation of NSL at this point. Anything but Repay Evil with Good. Hey, am I about to praise Rabbit's Luck? Yes, I am about to praise Rabbit's Luck. That's how much this story pissed me off. For as flawed as the writing in Rabbit's Luck was, you wanna know what that story didn't do? It never resorted to victim blaming Lincoln at any point in time. At least it didn't force him to make things right with his abusers. Or abuser in this scenario. I guess if there is some good that came out of Repay Evil with Good, is that it made me appreciate What Is a Person Worth a little bit more. Call me crazy if you like, but the former might be even worse than No Such Luck itself. Okay, so I recently read GGC Pictures' recent post responding to the sneak peek of my video. So GGC, if you're listening to this, I commend you for being reasonable and level-headed in your response. It's always appreciated when the very few people I call out don't take things the wrong way or make up lies about me purely out of petty spite. While the video you watched was meant to be a preview of what to expect from the episode, and that the finished version ended up being harsher than you were expecting, I still appreciate your initial response. But good grief, please do better. Thanks for understanding. Which begs the question, what could I possibly despise even more than that? A wrestling match that took place on the 11th of April 2021? Which took place on night 2 of the 37th WrestleMania, which single-handedly solidified my hatred for WWE for completely ruining a wrestler I held dear until the end of time? Bring it on.
2 racks on new shoes, why the fuck I do that? Tell me why the fuck do I do that? 2 racks on some Gucci shoes, why the fuck do I do that? Tell me why the fuck I do that? Who's that with you in the room, why the fuck do you do that? Tell me why the fuck do you do that? Girl, you know that I'ma die real soon, why the fuck do you do that? Tell me why the fuck do you do that?
Okay, so today is my mother's birthday, and I decided to let her join me in this special recording for this video. So, anything you want to say to my audience, Mom?
Yes. Hi, fans. Thank you for supporting my son, Briox. He's the coolest. And thank you for saying happy birthday to me. I'm really excited that you're sharing this with your fans. Thank you.
You're welcome. Happy birthday, Mom. I love you.
I love you too, Papa. Bye.
So long.